Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
Do you consent this video to be recorded?
Yes.
Okay. So this interview is again going to be about how your mental health impacts your daily life.
Can I?
Yeah. So Nicole just asked if she could knit. Okay, so the first question is, how does your mental health impact your daily life?
I think my mental health used to impact my daily life way more than what it does right now. But currently, I mean, I can. I'm trying to think how to explain this. I can live now. Before, I would used to be so nervous to do anything, but every once in a while now those fears come back, and I kind of relapse a little bit into what I used to be, but it's much better.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there any other ways that your mental health impacts your life?
Sometimes when I have to go to my internship, so I go to work and I know I have to go to work, and that's fine. But then it gets to the very end of the day and it's like I've been strong for so long that by the end of the day it's like I just need to go home. And I get so anxious because then I know I can't go home. I have to go to my internship. And I feel like, thankfully I work for someone who isn't very, very strict with hours, so I can kind of get away with it. Not get away with it like I'm playing the system, but I have the ability to have flexibility if I am having a rough day.
So like the ability to like do your work and then leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I wish that wasn't a thing. Like I wish I could just work, go to my internship, and not have the anxiety that I do. But
What ways do you cope with your mental health?
I've gotten better lately about talking about it with people. Like my boss, when I'm anxious, I used to try to hide it from her because I didn't want to look like a weak person and a weak employee. But now I understand that everybody has, their different things that they struggle with. And so just because I struggle with different things sometimes doesn't make me a weak person. That's just who I am, and somebody else has something else that makes them weak. So,
So you like to talk about your anxiety with other people, but is there other ways too that you like to cope with it?
yeah. So that's something that I've recently been doing. I used to keep it in so much, and I think that would make it worse. So talking is good. Another thing that I do is I knit a lot. Like probably too much, but it just helps me so much to be focused on something productive where I'm getting an outcome out of what I'm doing, and it's taking up my time in a good way rather than being on social media or spending my money shopping or spending my money at happy hour or something like that. Like I'm doing something productive, and I've actually been recently making money off of it, so now it's even more productive.
That's good.
Yes.
Is there any other ways you like to cope with your mental health?
My dog has been a huge impact in my life. When my anxiety was really bad a few years ago, I actually was talking to my parents and about maybe getting a therapy dog or, you know, just a dog in general. And so I ended up rescuing a dog, and he, at about the same time, was when my anxiety took a turn for the better. And so sometimes I think of it as myself that's getting better, but other times I think of it as my dog that's helped me get better. So
That's nice.
I spend a lot of time helping him. So
That's good.
yeah.
What is the best way for you to cope with your mental health?
The best way for me to cope with my mental health is to take a step back. Because sometimes I have this and then this, like boom, 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 like all these things in a row that I need to do. And that's what gets me, really worked up.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I take a step back and say, what can I take off of my plate right now? That helps me. And then when I do that, I use one of those self-care things in place.
Mm-hmm.
So say I'm supposed to go run these errands, but they really can wait, so I take that off and I'll like knit, or I'll go on a long walk with my dog, or I'll FaceTime someone I trust, like my boyfriend or my sister or my mom or something, to just distract me. And sometimes we don't even have to talk about my anxiety, we just talk about anything, and it just helps get me out of my mind.
Mm-hmm. So was it hard to figure out that you needed to take things off your plate to know that that would improve your mental health?
A little bit, because when I was very anxious, probably about 3 years ago, I had nothing on my plate. I wasn't working, I wasn't going to school, I wouldn't do things with friends because I was just so nervous all the time. So then when I started getting better and adding things to my plate, I was like, this is great. And then all of a sudden I was adding too much to my plate.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like doing nothing made me anxious, but then doing too much made me anxious. So it's finding a balance in between.
Yeah. How do people in your life impact your mental health?
I think people in my life are very supportive. My family is really understanding, if I'm not feeling well when we're out or something, they're not mean to me, or they're not, rude about it. They understand how I feel, and which helps a lot. And my boyfriend, he's the same way. At first, it used to get him a little bit nervous because he didn't really understand anxiety and, worries and fears. But now he knows kind of what triggers me and what helps me get past it. So sometimes just a quick phone call, or even a quick, checking in and grounding myself just really helps.
Yeah.
So having those supportive people in my life.
Yeah, that's good. How would you like to improve your mental health?
I would like to not have fears as significant as I do. Even though I feel like I'm so much better, I still definitely worry a lot more than I think the average person does. But something that I'm proud of is that even though I'm worrying, it doesn't prevent me from doing things. Like next month when I go to Florida, I'm worried about flying by myself, but I'm actually really scared about it, but it's not preventing me from doing it. When a few years ago, when I was very, very anxious, I didn't go on a plane for 2 years because I physically could not do it.
So your mental health would hold you back?
150%, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Is there, since you've been able to, improve your mental health, do you think you've, gained the skills to help other people improve their mental health?
I think so, because not just from, I guess from improving, since I felt I was so low and I was hurting so much with, my fears and getting worried and everything. And now that I'm back higher, I understand those people. I understand where they're coming from. Maybe we have different things that trigger us or affect us, but I still get the feeling that they have.
Yeah.
And how it can be so debilitating, even though to the average person it seems like nothing.
Yeah. So a lot of times when someone's struggling with their mental health, a lot of people in their life will make them feel like it's irrational, but it's nice to have people who make them feel comfortable and know that their fears aren't.
Right. I definitely felt like I felt like my fears were irrational, and I knew they were irrational, but there was nothing that I could do about it. So it really helped to have my family be supportive, that they probably were thinking it was irrational, but they never verbalized that. And, they kind of, just helped me get through it. Another thing that I noticed, especially since I'm in social work school, is to help normalize people's feelings. I've had students who get very worked up about, arguments with their parents or this or that. And obviously not everything is normal. But in the situation of anxiety, sometimes it is normal to feel like that, but your reaction to your fears aren't normal. So I've noticed it helps, and that's kind of helped me as well. Like, nobody wants to be sick, and that's one of my big fears, is getting sick. And so that's a fear, and it's normal. So it helps me, ground myself.
Is there other ways that you normalize your anxiety?
Like, for me personally, I have to think. I can't think off of the top of my head right now, but I definitely, like, when I talk to family members or something, and they're feeling very depressed and like it's the end of the world, since I've kind of been there, I help normalize. It's not as much me normalizing my own feelings as me understanding and helping normalize their feelings to help them better themselves.
Yeah. So it seems like you have a lot of empathy for people who struggle with mental health.
Yes, a lot of empathy. Sometimes I wish I could turn it off because it, I feel for every single person.
Yeah.
But it is a good thing to have. I'd rather have it than not have it.
Yeah. So can you think of a time when your mental health was struggling, but you practiced self-care? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
A couple weeks ago at my job, this was probably the first time my anxiety got really, really, really bad at work. I felt like, I don't know, just my world was just spinning. And I don't know. It's a feeling, but it's kind of hard to explain how anxious I was. And before, I would always try to keep it inside, like work through it myself. But I couldn't do that this time, and so I was at lunch, and I talked to one of my coworkers at lunch, and they were, everybody kind of turned their attention, and they realized, like, how serious I was feeling, and how it wasn't just a joke, it wasn't anything minor, like, I was very worked up and anxious. And so they all were trying to help me in the best way that they could. And then after lunch, when I got back to my office, I was still on the verge of tears, and I don't know why I was on the verge of tears, but I was just like trembling, and I just couldn't focus. And I went to the social worker in my department, and I said, "Do you have a second to talk?" She's like, "Yes." And then she looked, and she's like, "For you?" And I said, "Yes." And I've never done that before, because since I'm in school to be a social worker, I never wanted to look weak to someone, especially a coworker who's a social worker, and but I just needed the help at that time, and she sat me down and talked with me and helped ground me, and we did a few little meditation things, and it really, really helped. And then my boss came out, and she needed me to do 7 things at once. So that helped distract me as well. But yeah, that was a big time practicing self-care, because I was able to talk about it instead of just holding it in and making it worse.
So yeah, that's really nice. Is there another time that you think you use self-care to improve your mental health? Maybe like in the past, like not necessarily like the near like present, but in the past.
when my grandpa was very sick a few years ago, so I've always liked to knit ever since I was like 10 years old. But when I was in college, I kind of, I was knitting, but I wasn't knitting as much. And then when I graduated college, I knit still like a little bit, but not as much as I do now. But then when my grandpa got very, very sick, I went to the store. You were with me. We went down to New Haven.
Oh, yeah.
And I picked out new yarn, and it was a little expensive, but I didn't really care at that point. And I picked out yarn to make a project something very special to me that I still wear. It's like probably my favorite thing that I own.
What is it?
The cowl, the 3-colored one.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a time when I really practiced self-care because I was so worried that entire week and so anxious and scared of what was going to happen that I literally knit and knit and knit the entire time, and that's what got me back into knitting. And since then, I haven't stopped. So that's been a really good thing. And that was probably my turning point, even though it was very sad when he passed away. I kind of focused my energy on making him proud and making myself a better person. So I've worked very hard at, overcoming my anxieties and, doing what I need to do to get better. So.
It's really nice. Do you have anything else you want to add about your mental health in your daily life before we end the interview?
Not really anything that we haven't already touched upon, aside from the fact that having your family understand how you feel is very, very important. Because it has just helped them help me without making the situation worse. So that's been the biggest thing in my life.
Yeah. Do you think you could give me a little bit of feedback on how you felt the interview went?
Sure. I think the interview went well. I didn't prepare that much, so I was, surprised by how much I was able to contribute and how many situations popped back into my mind based off of the questions that you asked. And I think they are very good questions that you asked because I was able to evaluate myself and how much I've improved and how I'm doing has really helped me. So it's not like I feel triggered after this. It's more I feel like this was a self-help exercise.
Good.
So,
happy to hear.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add? It's okay if you don't.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting me interview you.
Of course. Anytime.